want to start?
Yeah, I do want to start.
All right, we're starting.
So, Robert and I have been talking, and we kind of wanted to figure out where in the company we're using .NET. And we'd heard through the grapevine that Mom uses it. So who else to talk to than the development manager of Mom? If you could introduce yourself.
Sure. Brijesh Bhatia. I'm the development manager for the Mom team.
Okay.
And far away.
Excellent. So let's jump first. I mean, let's talk about Mom. What is Mom?
Wow. So if you're familiar with the management space, then essentially Mom is a product that provides you service levels or helps you keep your service levels in IT up for your Windows servers as well as your Windows Server applications, as well as just any services you might have running in the environment, whether they're web services or just line of business applications, etc. So just, I mean, in simplistic terms, that's what it does.
Okay.
That's pretty much it.
Okay. So it's a management infrastructure for for huge networks, so you can manage lots of machines simultaneously.
That's absolutely right. And essentially it's around, if you're familiar with ITIL in the management space, then it's kind of broken up into a few quadrants around change of configuration management, deployment, operations, etc. And we kind of fill the operations bucket, and that's really where we are.
Outstanding. Now, in order for it to work, do you have to install Mom on all of these machines? How does it work?
So, wow, management infrastructures, putting them in place has always been a hell of a job. And you need to install essentially at least a Mom server, and there's a database component that's associated with that as well. And then what you end up doing is deploying a Mom agent to every server that you want to manage.
Okay.
And there's, of course, UI components that you could deploy in separate boxes, which, the UI can remote in.
Sure.
And simplistically, that's what it is.
But the key is that you're maintaining and monitoring entire systems from one location, from the Mom server.
Absolutely. There's a central location that provides you the ability to sort of go ahead and do central management of your distributed infrastructure.
And so now, in terms of how Mom is working, it's obviously, well, I say obviously, I don't know the answer, but I would think that it's an event-based system. So the Mom server, you register for events from all of the machines, and when something happens, they let you know.
So essentially, what it is you're somewhat right.
Okay.
I mean, you deploy a set of agents. There's a first step where the agents are always hot beating to a server, letting the server know that they're up and available.
Okay.
So you ensure that traffic is always flowing, and if the agent's down, then obviously you can't get any more data up out of that server. So you're sort of in a bit of a blackout environment, and that's not what you want.
Mm-hmm.
And then yes, we have intrinsic events that flow through the system, all the way from agents up to the server. That kind of lets you know about the health of the other applications.
Fantastic.
For example, and they use standard Windows instrumentation such as event logs, perf counters, WMI events if you wanted. You could pretty much extend Mom to pick up any kind of instrumentation.
Excellent. So you use managed code in Mom.
We do use managed code.
Where are you using managed code?
We have the Mom server component, which is essentially all native code, because we felt that .NET was not quite ready for a full server-side implementation yet. But we do use it extensively in both our UI layer as well as our SDK layer, our mid-tier, essentially. And those are all managed code. Excellent. We also use it extensively in what we have called the Mom Connector framework, which enables us to connect Mom to other management systems that are out there, such as HP OpenView and Tivoli. And Mom Connector framework is actually pretty popular. It's a web service-based framework that lets you connect alerts in and out of Mom.
So is Mom programmable then?
Mom is programmable.
Okay, so you have a
managed code SDK, absolutely.
Excellent.
Absolutely.
Very cool.
And in fact, in Mom v3, it's actually the first management product that has an entire managed code SDK, and our UI is built entirely on top of that SDK as well. And we have scripting and monad interfaces into that SDK. So we're all managed code, and as much as you can be.
That's awesome. So someone else walked in the room.
So this is Tom Cox, actually. He's one of our UI developers.
Okay.
Works extensively with the .NET framework, works extensively with .NET. Has been a big champion of it on our team as well. And
so why? Talk to us.
So what's the context? This is just for...
This is Channel 9. We're doing a Channel 9 interview. We're going around the company for the specific series to figure out where and how managed code is being used
Oh, okay.
in our products
Yeah, yeah.
because people want to know. And so we heard that Mom is using it, so we showed up and we talked a little bit about Mom, and now we want.
Sure.
So you're a champion for managed code in Mom. Why?
It's a time saver. A lot of things that we've done with managed code would have been time consuming in native code. Let me give you an example. Our SDK, which is all managed code, the data that's returned from that is returned as .NET objects. We were able to serialize those objects to persist them into our cache and then retrieve them at later times, even after our UI is closed and then restarted. We deserialize the objects from the cache.
Okay.
And to have done the same thing with native code would have been much more time consuming. Managed code had all the mechanisms in place to serialize all the simple types and so
Excellent.
And just to put things in context, we actually ended up. I mean, not only do we save time. I mean, I guess the time savings are probably the biggest when you think about it. But it's also when you do stress runs and stuff, right? I mean, we don't get the big memory leaks anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the leaks are fixed. I mean, either it's a runaway thread or it's an OpenDB connection or things like that.
Mm-hmm.
The heap corruptions they don't come in anymore again, like you have in native code, etc. So things are definitely it is a big time saver.
So it probably saves testing time too.
Oh, it saves them testing time in a huge way. I mean, they don't have to go pretty much get up to speed with everything that the developer knows. And you always worry about, hey, is there a gap here or not? And then you have, again, folks who are more skilled than the other folks, etc. But the ramp up time is usually the same. And with .NET, it's just cut down tremendously. So you get new folks in who, even when you get external hires who played with Java and stuff, they come on in. The ramp-up time is so minimal, it's amazing.
True, because, well, in their case, they're used to working with a managed runtime.
Exactly.
They're used to working with a garbage-collected environment that's strongly typed, well, mostly strongly typed in Java's case. So, excellent. So what have been some of the challenges of working with .NET coming from the native side?
Performance.
Performance.
Yeah.
Interesting. Have you worked with Rico Mariani at all?
I know who that is. I see his posts all the time, but no,
Cool.
I've never communicated directly with him.
Okay.
I think over time we worked with, at least on mail, and with the discussion relations with, I think it was Mahesh Bhatia who used to own it a few years ago, and then the ownership keeps switching. But yeah, we definitely follow the guidelines. We do the right things. We trim it down as much as we can.
Sure.
We even actually evaluated for server. I mean, we took Everett over Whitby. We see the improvements. We see the improvements in scale up. I mean, you add more procs to it now. Things are definitely better. But still not fully baked for server side entirely. But it's getting there.
Excellent.
It's getting there.
What kind of performance difference are you seeing? And where specifically are the performance hits?
I'd just say from a server scale up side. For example, when you guys used to in Everett, you had some good.
That's
numbers.
V1.
V1. Oh, was that V1?
V1.1. Yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
That's right. That was good. We had some good numbers with quad procs, and then I think when we scaled those up, actually performance deteriorated. And with Whitby, I believe we've got some pretty good numbers going up to a 32 proc machine. So that's one place I've seen it. I'm sure Tom can add more from a performance standpoint. I mean, things are just snappier and faster.
Sure.
I mean, overall, GCs have improved. The
Yeah.
threading model's improved. Everything's gone up a notch. You know what I mean? It just adds up. So it wasn't like one big thing that was bringing the thing down, but 5% improvements in every area.
Absolutely.
Definitely added up.
And I know they did a ton of work for performance-related issues in
Yeah.
Whitby.
And the other advantages of .NET, right? Our entire remoting story is over Indigo now.
Right.
Nice.
And I mean, we took a bet on it, and it was a big deal. We said, hey, should we go to .NET remoting? It seems more stable than Indigo right now, etc. Should we have something else? And we took the bet on Indigo remoting, and it's working out, at least currently. We're also gonna. I mean, it's a standardized protocol.
Sure.
We have it, and we can enable other people to connect into our systems, if nothing else. If they don't want to go through our SDK, they can go through that. I mean, we're good.
Yeah.
So.
Are you working with the teams on Orcus, I guess, to get performance even better? Are you giving feedback to?
We're giving feedback for sure.
Yeah.
For sure, we'll open
So you
bugs as
go
necessary.
next door because we're in building
Absolutely.
44 and they're over in building 42.
We
right?
do go next door. In fact, we even have shared commitments with folks like the Indigo team. But definitely, I mean, we're hard on them with our perf, and then they drive through appropriately, I guess.
Sure. Fantastic.
What's been surprising by using .NET? What were you surprised by? Maybe.
I think increased productivity is probably the biggest thing. I mean, I think the amount we've been able to churn out is just outstanding. I mean, the fact that we actually even talk about doing massive rewrites now, without fear, so to speak. Like, yeah, sure, and I mean, we've literally rewritten the UI between our two betas, which is.
Does that lead to lazy software engineering?
You know,
if you know you can rewrite it.
We don't like to. Let's keep that in mind, right? We're not like all about it, but I guess we're more open to the customer feedback as well at that point, right? I mean, it's more of a balance where we're not pushing back as much because we're like, well, yeah, I see what you're saying, and we could do this.
Absolutely.
And it's amazing because the test team is able to keep up as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Without worrying about, hey, I'm going to have to throw away this or throw that away.
I mean, and I would just interject. I mean, Robert, of course, was kidding, but you still have to be a good engineer.
Absolutely.
Just because you have type-safe code.
Absolutely.
But that's always the thing. As software tools get easier, our code gets bigger.
Yeah.
That's the old rant on the street is, why is Microsoft building bloated code? Or you hear that over years. I mean, when you had to write everything in assembler, you had to really think.
Yeah, and that kind of feedback is typically coming from those people. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that you don't have to write assembler anymore.
Yeah.
And that's just, I mean, so are you taking advantage of some of the constructs in WIDBE, like generics?
Oh yeah.
Right? Anonymous methods, stuff like that?
Yeah.
Awesome. So you like generics?
Oh yeah. We love generics, and
How are you using them?
well, containers. I mean, primarily, we've actually, in some cases, we're actually using. Oh, I know a great case where we're using generics. We have the concept of queries, which are basically anything the UI is displaying is a query against the back end. So we have a query class that's a generic, and that allows us to specify the data type that query is returning back to us.
Excellent.
For example. Let's see. Anonymous delegates. We were able to use anonymous delegates to make it easier to wrap methods in exception handlers, if that makes sense. The challenge we had was we needed to generically handle exceptions. For example, you initiate some action in the UI, and you want that if that action fails and an exception is thrown, you want to display certain types of exceptions. You want to display the error to the user. Using anonymous delegates, we were able to invoke methods inside an outer method that would do the exception handling.
Fantastic.
And the anonymous delegates enabled us to write inline code, basically, very quickly.
Very cool.
What do you wish you would have known before you started coding in .NET? In other words, what did you learn by actually coding in .NET that you wish you had known when you started? Maybe you had to throw away some code or something.
It's it's been challenging trying to get a handle on how to manage exceptions. And I wish I had the approach that we use now. I wish I had it from the onstart. It would have saved us a lot of time.
I think the other thing is we have a lot of we do a lot of diligence around. So I think with native code, right, there's a few ways to do certain things. There's less standardization around libraries and stuff. So if you're using, for example, a library, you know what kind of functions are available in there for your usage, for reuse, etc. I guess you can do a lot of things. You can do a few things in quite a few ways in .NET. And so sometimes we sort of struggle with, well, sure, I got this working, but is this the right way to do it? Is this the right approach? Is this the way I need to be repainting this form? You know what I mean? There's a couple of ways I guess I could do it. Is this the right thing here? So those are the things we sort of worry about sometimes, which is like, are we doing the right thing?
Sure.
Especially
that's why I asked the question. If you're learning some best practices by, because that's people who are just starting out in .NET don't have the knowledge you guys have built up by building.
And I think it's taking time, and we just dock it up, as we go along, and make sure we're consistent about it. Use this string class versus the string builder class versus something else.
Sure.
So we kind of go with that, and we kind of say in these situations this works best. But that does take time. So you kind of go down this path, and then you realize, oh my God, I've used this all over my code.
Absolutely.
and here's the problem. Do you know what I mean?
What was the way you handle exceptions now?
Well, so we have an outer method that invokes a inner method, basically, and it invokes a delegate. And the outer method is a generic method that has our routines for handling exceptions and displaying the error message or allowing the UI to crash or whatever the right thing is to do. Anonymous, and going back to anonymous delegates again, if we didn't have anonymous delegates for every type of action that we invoked, we'd have to have another method that represented that action. Anonymous delegates allows us in a lot of cases to just inline what the action is that we want to perform. So.
Cool. Well, I mean, and that's a good implementation of why they were designed. It's very cool. So, again, I mean, the point that when you're an engineer, if you're a native engineer, etc., there's still the constructs, the basic constructs of programming are still there.
Oh, they're there, and like you said, I mean, it's our responsibility from a development side, right, to make sure we don't get lazy, regardless of programming language.
Sure.
So we do the best we can with what's offered.
Absolutely.
In that language. Sometimes we build things around it as necessary. I mean, and then you just go with it.
Absolutely.
Right? It's just the way Indigo did it. For example, they have, they provide reliable messaging over HTTP, for example, so they had to build a layer over that for it. So you still, they do what they have to do.
Yeah.
So we just go with it.
Outstanding.
But definitely in terms of, for UI for personalization and customization, the serialization features are huge for us, right? You serialize out to XML, pull it back up. The XML support, right, with everything going towards XML. .NET is huge. We've actually been able to take our management packs, right, which are these things that you import into MOM, that used to be sort of binary implementations that came from different server teams, and just break them all up to be XSD compliant. With an XSD that we have, and it's great because the support's been great on it. Our partners can party on those. We can over time leverage the SQL XML support. So it just helps all across the board, right? And it's and we have libraries that do native code parsing of XML as well. And we know the same dev works on both at times, right?
Sure.
And it's great when you see the person call out, oh my god, what took me a day over here is going to take me like 6 over there. So just things like that.
And they made major improvements to Windows Forms in 2.0.
They actually did. If you want to talk to those, because you use those pretty extensively.
Maybe for repainting or like what sorts of.
It's funny. It's hard for me to remember what the differences are because we've been using Woodbey for a while now. So,
excellent.
We've been actually since beta 1, I think.
Actually, just yeah.
Yeah,
so we've actually gone through all the pain. So it's sort of like, So when I would say my biggest pain was not really with .NET, but with being a very early adopter of it. So while improvements are being made, I guess the team kind of has to go through those, and then we get blocked by some bugs, for example, and you go fix them, you come back, and that's a painful process. But if I were to start with like RTM bits, it'd be a whole different story.
Absolutely.
We in WinForms we really like the grid control. We're using that in a lot of places. In the new tool strips, which wasn't in Everett.
Sure.
For more of that office look and feel, we're using that
Good.
in a lot of places too.
Now, are you guys thinking in terms of since you're running Whitby, maybe leveraging WinFX?
We are actually leveraging WinFX.
Okay.
We would have liked to.
Sure.
It was just a matter of timing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I could imagine some pretty awesome implementations of, say, Avalon, or what are they calling it, WPF, for future iterations.
Outside of that, we're still using, I guess, the Windows Communication Framework. I've been saying Indigo all the while, but and things like that.
Yeah.
We're bundled in. I don't know what the latest is right now.
That's cool. That's really exciting. You guys are really, really taking advantage of the power of .NET.
Awesome. We do pay. There is definitely a tax or cost associated with being an early adopter, but I think over time it pans out.
We're starting to have some challenges with just the size of our project now, managing namespaces, class names, things like that. Actually, this is we did use managed code in the previous project too, but we didn't have nearly as many classes as we have in this one, and just the managing the DLLs, the things like that, are becoming more of an issue than they used to be.
Really interesting.
You need a map on the wall to keep track of everything.
We're hitting limitations on how many resource files we can compile on the command line. we have so many resource files that we've had this split up into separate command lines because the length was exceeded.
Wow.
For example. It sounds. I know it's really trivial, but it's actually kind of a pain. It's one of our pain points right now.
Any tips for people who are getting into .NET for the first time? And if you had another developer here, what would you say are
And it depends on the
3
developer.
things that they should really pay attention to?
3 things that they should really pay attention to.
Yeah.
Well, there's this really great book. Was the framework? I can't think of the name now. I'm so sorry.
Who wrote it?
Framework guidelines
Yeah.
by Brad Abrams.
Yeah,
And,
that was
yeah.
one. Yeah,
That's great. Those guys have done great work with guidelines.
Yeah.
definitely.
The big white book.
use tools like FXCop. They're there to help you. They'll catch stuff early that you may not even be aware of.
Excellent point.
I think 3 points. Well, those are the two. Those are 2.
If you think of a third one.
I mean, the fact of the matter is, I mean, you're still designing algorithms, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what language, C++ or not. You're just gonna. It's different in .NET. It's easier.
Yeah.
It's more manageable. It's more reliable in the sense that you can sort of intuit what's going to happen. And now, you guys, in designing your classes and interfaces and stuff, you guys have design meetings and figure out when you're going to use interfaces versus different types of classes, abstract classes, that kind of junk. I mean, so you're still engineering.
You're still engineering.
So I think that's a fault. I mean,
Right.
That's where Rico Mariani and his blog comes in so important in the sense that you still have to kind of understand garbage
course.
collection.
Yeah,
Right.
you do need to get.
So
I'd say the things that, the decisions that we make, right, where .NET or not to .NET, so to speak, right,
Mhm.
are literally when we have to do, for example, Mom's going to have an agent that runs on a desktop tomorrow. We just have really stringent footprint guidelines. It's just what we have. These are constraints that customers sort of impose.
Sure.
Just cannot go over 2 megs, for example, or 3 megs. Then we just have to do what we have to do there.
absolutely.
And in some cases, even with native, we cut down a whole lot there. We don't use certain standard libraries that we would have normally. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we'll cut down. So you're just going bare bones.
Sure.
There, you're just pretty much even wondering whether you use. You're pretty much sticking at C++
Sure.
as native as you can.
And that's great. I mean, C++ is evolving. Right?
It
They're
is.
evolving year by year. They're doing great stuff. C++ team, use the right tool for the job.
For the job. And
I mean,
I think in
that's
most
the
cases, .NET will do the job.
Yeah.
Sure. Especially in the UI layer.
Absolutely. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
I think the SQL team's done an awesome job as well.
True.
And I think that's one of the things we've actually been able to bring to the space. I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but the management space has traditionally been boring when it came to UI. And I think I used to work in the SQL team before, and I think one of the big reasons of SQL adoption are their tools. And they've always focused a lot on their UI and doing a good job at it. And they've taken it further with .NET in the Yukon release. But we try to bring that same sort of mantra into the management space, and we just said, hey, don't just shoehorn everything in MMC. Again, right tool for the job. It's great for single box administrative applications.
Cool.
But you want to do something central. The operator wants to see something. Give him something that is pleasant to look at. He's looking at it for 24 hours a day, for crying out loud.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it worked out great. We made a bet in MOM 2005 with this. It worked out awesome. Folks love it. And we're actually we have a combined console now, both administrative and operator, in a managed code shells.
Very cool. And since you guys have written your SDK in managed code, that lets developers write in a plethora of languages, including C++ if they want. So that's excellent. But in the interest of transparency and humanity, what's your feedback for the .NET team? Like, what would you tell them? Do you have any constructive?
Well, what do you want to see in Orcus? What team's listening? Right team?
They are listening.
We'll get feedback over.
Good. Get feedback over.
We will get feedback over.
Sounds like you want more scalability on the server side.
We definitely want more scalability and performance where possible. That's always one thing. The good part about here's the good part about the Visual Studio team and the like, right? There's tons of things all the way from an IDE to sort of a debugging environment You're sort of just raw bits that you want scale on, right? And so even if you don't get one, you tend to get a lot of the other two, because at the end of the day, there's still developers over there who understand themselves as the customer, and they know what works, what doesn't in a lot of ways. That's what I feel anyway.
Okay.
And so they're able to get some of the right stuff done, and you kind of see like features just come in that I don't know if anybody really would go out of their way and ask for, or you would just expect these things to happen, and they do. So that's goodness. But definitely, I'd encourage the VS folks to look a little bit more at sort of IT environments. That's where we were challenged, because none of us had really worked in IT, and the requirements over there are just different.
Do you guys go out and meet with big customers who are using stuff?
We do. We've learned a lot with those guys.
Sit next to the CTO at Boeing or
Not CTO, but definitely the admin or the operator.
Okay.
And we've sat with them, and the guy's just like, for whatever reasons, for example, Morgan Stanley, I visited them a couple of months ago, and he said, unless my box goes to Win2K 3 server, for example, I'm not going to have the .NET frameworks on there, so don't make me take a dependency on it.
Okay.
And then we have to kind of follow through with the why not. And it really has nothing to do with not having faith in .NET. It's just they have administrative policies, and somebody else owns the deployment of that server, and he doesn't want another application running on it.
Yeah.
And so we, end up going, well, I guess I can't use it for this reason.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it'd be cool if somehow you guys also understood those constraints and requirements.
Sure.
And I think that would help everyone a whole lot.
Okay. Excellent.
We're taking down the IT world.
I mean, this is super key, right? I mean,
doesn't the industry every decade or so just go around those guys? I mean, Microsoft is here because the centralized IT world said, "Oh, mainframes is it," and we're gonna control the world, and people would bring in small PCs behind their backs.
I mean, we have the whole DSI vision as well, right? Which starts at Visual Studio, MOM's a core piece of it, and then the whole management infrastructure and security is a piece of it, right? And that's where if there's more sort of synergy and understanding the requirements in the space, I think it'll work out better. But I mean, they do go around it up to. You're right. I mean, mainframes do eventually go away and stuff. But you'd be surprised how much NT4 there is out there today.
Yeah.
And
it's a great operating system.
It's a great operating system, and we're like, hey, can we move away from it and just have an agent on Win2K? And we managed to do that. And now we go, can we move away from that? Given that there's R2 out as well, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Can we just stick with Win2K 3 and up? And it's like, no, we have a huge customer base with Win2K. The servers are locked down. I mean, there's servers like Cisco, for example. They sell these big, machines that are out of warranty if you install any other software on them. If they don't have the .NET framework, you cannot use it.
Sure.
So those are the kind of challenges we face.
Yeah.
Now, that brings up an interesting point. Can you monitor non-Windows machines?
We can. We actually can in some ways. We end up doing things like synthetic transactions and reading syslogs and things like that. We do have a feature called agentless monitoring. In fact, that's how we monitor NT4 machines as well, since we didn't write it down. But we can, and we have partners who help out and ISVs who plug in. So.
Why don't customers? Why do they tell you that they don't move up to the latest stuff? Is it purely a cost thing, or is it a fear of change? Is it?
I think it's a mix of everything and sort of what they've seen over the years. But I mean, if they have mission critical servers, right? If they can't even afford reboots when we install our applications, imagine the upgrade of an application. So let's take Morgan Stanley for example. Let's just take the desktops, right? They have 40 to 50,000 desktops in house, and you need to go upgrade them pretty much over a weekend if you want to install a new version of Office on there. Because if you don't do that, training starts Monday morning, and then that guy better have his application up, man. It's like not an option.
Exactly.
Somebody's going to get fired. So
Wow.
when you think about it that way, right?
It's true.
It says, hey, wow, I need to deploy this kind of stuff to these machines in a weekend, done, right? And then Mom needs to make sure that it can monitor all this stuff, and
then what's doing the actual deployment would be SMS?
it's SMS, yes.
Exactly.
It's SMS.
We actually talked to Anders Winberg yesterday.
Okay.
Talking about the future of DSI.
Excellent.
And he talked about the importance of management and stuff. So we should hit up the SMS team as well. At some point.
Absolutely.
But you guys work in concert.
We absolutely do.
Very cool. So
A lot of challenges.
I'm
out there.
very impressed. I mean, I had no idea there was this level of integration with managed code in MOM.
Do you have any idea how many lines of code you've written in .NET?
I know. I know. Sorry.
No. A lot of sleepless nights, huh?
Yeah, we don't use that as a
And that's
measure our success.
You don't watch K-Locks, okay?
Yeah.
You don't get reviewed on thousands of lines of code written.
But I mean, you could probably argue that the amount of code you had to write to accomplish the same thing in native code would have been a heck of a lot more.
Yeah,
So,
and you can also factor into tools like the designer, which is generating code for us too now.
Yeah.
So
partial classes as well, which is
and partial
very
classes.
nice.
Yeah.
Well, this is great. It's great to meet you guys. Great to talk about this stuff.
Thank you.
Mom's a great product, and you're using .NET, in my opinion,
Say
makes
that
it
again.
even
Say
better.
that again loudly.
Mom's a great product.
One more time.
Well, Mom's great.
All right.
You know, it is interesting because the target audience on Channel 9 typically hasn't been IT.
Yeah.
And there is the notion of an IT developer.
Oh, absolutely.
And it sounds to me like managed code is just right up their alley.
It's the only thing they'll do. I'll tell you right now. I mean, it's either scripts where Monad comes in, but again, that uses .NET all over the place. You should really talk to them.
We do.
Definitely.
We have
We
Jeffrey
have one.
Snover
Jeffrey
over there.
Snover.
Oh, yeah.
Very cool.
And yeah, we're just adapting to the same strategy.
Cool.
Great.
And we're excited to see how this whole management infrastructure evolves because it sounds like some really nice things are happening.
Thank you, sir.
Cool.
What's the story?
Nice to meet you.
What's the story behind the bench in your
Yeah,
office?
we should show them the bench.
Oh, so that's the well, that's the community bench. So when there was a big push in Windows Server for a community effort, they had these benches and pictures and whatnot all over the buildings.
Okay.
And what we decided to do to help out with community is pick this bench up and put it in people's offices so that they would own community for that week.
Ah.
And I think people got fed up with me, and it just keeps going back in my office. But they do care. We're all about community.
Good.
It's just that I have to drive.
Yeah. How do people get back in touch with your team?
We use either Ladybug or we have customer, we have staff
MSDN,
PMs.
product
and-
feedback center.
Yeah,
whatever.
that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. I guess
Do you guys have blogs or anything like that?
We do have a mom blog.
A mom blog?
We do have a mom blog.
On blogs.msdn.com or
it
is it on
is.
TechNet?
There's actually one off of both,
Okay.
but
Perfect.
different labels.
We'll put that. We'll put links to those.
We'll put
in
links to
post.
those.
Yeah.
And we'll let you guys get back to work.
Thank you, sir.
But thank you for your time. It's great
Thanks.
to meet you.
Take care.
Thank you.